Yeah, welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a good time here down in Memphis. Had some good barbecue. So have a good time hanging out down here.
Yeah, I think I've had barbecue every night. It's been just fine. What you brought to the show this year is two guitars where you're sort of starting to modify your bracing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, I made a bunch of rapid prototype guitars a few months ago where I just had two guitars that I could make really quick changes and tried to just kind of free up the lower bout down here instead of having the two tone bars. I've came up with what I call a U brace down there, which just makes this a lot more open and free. And I've tried to kind of shift the tonal balance a few clicks toward the bass and kind of sweeten up the trebles.
Yeah, I definitely noticed as I was playing, it's got a lot of the qualities that I love in a fingerstyle guitar. It's really, the notes seem to come out and then blossom, so that there's a lot going on. There's beautiful overtones. You mentioned that you're French polishing to sort of keep it very active and lively and lush like that. And I can definitely sense it as I'm playing it. Sounds great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the finish is less than 2/1000 of an inch thick, and I do an intermediate coat of oil varnish in there, which does give it a little bit more toughness than if it were just straight shellac. And that's the way Lloyd Lord did all his mandolins, so I'm guessing if it was okay for him, it's okay for me.
I think we'd all agree.
Yeah.
And you've been building quite a while, so just historically, were there some sort of pivotal moments for you in your career where you sort of had aha moments and either just discovered something that really took you in a new direction, or got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think the 20 years that I spent building classical guitars has helped me with the steel string guitars, because I've taken some of the contemporary designs that are fairly well established in the classical world, like the double sides. Mine are actually pretty thick, and the concept of that is to keep the tension off of the top to make the side assembly be able to take up more of just the pure string tension, which lets the top vibrate freer. Of course, Greg Smallman and Daniel Friedrich and Bob Ruck, they've all been, even Ramirez have been doing that sort of thing. And then, the French polish also, there's just something pretty miraculous about shellac. It seems to be ridiculously flexible and yet ridiculously hard, and I don't really know how those things work, but I guess I don't really have to know how it works. It just does. Yeah. And then also the beauty of it being able to be retouched, where if I had a customer, it wasn't one of my guitars, but a customer sent me a guitar that was a French polish, it was a classical, and his dog had jumped on it and put big scratches down here. And just with a little bit of work, unless you really knew that it was there, you couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that with really any other finish.
I agree, and I totally agree about the tonal qualities of French polish. All of my personal guitars, I ask for French polish tops at least, and it's just the best sounding finish I've heard. It doesn't sound like it's not there at all, basically.
Yes, right.
But cool. Tell me a little about your history in music yourself. Have you been a player most of your life?
I have been a player. I've been playing guitar since I was 12, and in the 70s I was playing bluegrass music in Kentucky, and then gravitated in towards early music. I was singing in a madrigal group, and I started making early instruments, lutes and viola da gambas, and just kind of went down that rabbit hole for a while.
Yeah.
And which then got into classical guitars, and I was enjoying the repertoire that people were playing. It was very varied and melodic, and then about 10 years ago I kind of got interested in building steel strings again, since that was my first foray into making guitars, and I'm more of a steel string player than a classical player, and I think that's helped me listen to the guitar and develop the sound.
Yeah, that's great. It's so interesting how life takes us around, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And and music has just been the center of everything for me, and I've just kind of revolved around one sphere of music or another. And
Yeah, that's great. I can kind of sense that in your guitar. That I think a lot of my favorite guitars come from makers who play. I think there's a sensibility that clearly, um, it comes through in the construction. Can you talk about that as you're building? What are you thinking of from the player's perspective?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to find a sound that is involving and that you can play for a long time and still find nuances in the sound that you're kind of surprised by, and not a sound that will try to hit the back row of a concert hall with a steel string guitar, but just something that's just very involving and with lots of tone colors, depending upon where you play and what angle you attack the string. I think that's probably one of the most amazing things about the guitar that we have, is that both your hands are involved in tone production with vibrato and angles and things, and so you can just really manipulate the sound. I think it's pretty unparalleled with any other instrument.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a good point too. A lot of steel string players maybe don't always realize that. I see a lot of players in the shop, and sometimes they're not exploring all the depth of that, just the hand techniques. But certainly, I'm around a lot of pro players who do, and it's pretty magical. You see a Tony McManus or an Al Fedway or Clyde Carroll, one of these guys they're doing so much like a classical player is taught to do.
Exactly.
Using the right hand especially, and just
right.
Getting lots of colors.
Yeah, just even the angle with which you attack it, and obviously where you pluck it on the string, but
sure.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done.
Cool. What other kind of hobbies do you have outside of guitar building or music in general? What else?
Well, I play in a little duo right now where we do sort of a roots music. A lot of close harmony, Louvin Brothers and things like that. Just two guitars, and I play bass sometimes, and we're just having a lot of fun. We actually we're sounding pretty good, if I don't say so myself. And I like to work out, like to exercise, and like to travel. Just went to Cuba last year and had an awesome time down there with my son. And actually got to sit in with a Cuban band, which was kind of like, I can just go ahead and die right now.
Was that on steel string or nylon?
It was nylon, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I got my entry into that by I had 24 sets of classical guitar strings, which I knew were really hard for players to get down there, both because of the expense and because the government has to order those for musicians, and it's probably pretty far down on the list. And so I handed a set of strings to this guy Gerardo, and it was like I'd given him the Holy Grail. And their little band started their set, and he's yelling, "Tomas, Tomas, come here!" So, he hands me a guitar, and it was very complex. The rhythms are not what we're used to hearing here, and but it was just a blast. And and the Cuban people are just amazing, and I'm so happy that maybe we can normalize things, and it's kind of like a cousin in the Americas that we're getting reestablished with, and it's all good. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful, and it's I think as a builder, that happened as a player, but even as a builder, I think music is the universal language, and as a builder, it's got to feel good to just be part of that world.
Exactly, yeah, because it's outside of politics. Music is just people connecting, and politics, that's just governments.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, enjoyed it.